Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wiki Reading. Today I'll be reading Backrooms Entity 4, Deathmoths. Habitat, multi-level, migratory. Properties, insectoid, hive mind, aggressive. When the swarm descends, hesitation kills. Get yours today. BNTG Bioworks presents Deathmoth Repellent, now at most BNTG retailers. Field-proven against Entity 4 and some of the harshest environments known to the Backrooms. One spray buys you the time you need to escape, because survival isn't optional. The BNTG does not guarantee your safety when using this product. Entity 4, colloquially known as Deathmoths, is a species of chimeric moths endemic to the Backrooms. These entities possess the characteristics of dozens of species of moths, insects, and other organisms, with new physical deviations being developed over time. In addition to biological distinctions, death moths have a complex and unique life cycle not found in any other known entity. The non-larval members of the species are separated into three unique castes: the common death moth, the Praetorian death moth, and the Empress death moth. Analysis. Central nest. Death moth nests are large semi-organic structures that serve as both a hive and an incubator for the colony. Constructed primarily from digested biological matter, plant fibers, and secreted resin, the nests maintain a humid interior ideal for prepupal growth. Using pre-existing architecture as a base, the colony will add layers of organic matter approximately 60 to 100 centimeters thick. It is common for death moths to construct columns out of indigestible remains and coat them in the same semi-organic material. The death moth's natural resin has a preservative compound that prevents rot from forming within the central hive. Colonies of sufficient size that occupy expansive levels have been observed constructing smaller, auxiliary nests at great distances from the central hive. These satellite structures serve as outposts for incubation, resource storage, and limited habitation. This allows the colony to extend its influence across vast areas without overburdening the primary nest. Death moth eggs. Death moths are oviparous insectoids, laying anywhere from 12 to 700 eggs at a time. Both the common and empress death moths use a retractable ovipositor located at the tip of their abdomen to attach their eggs to the lining of the central nest. Fertilization process. Female common death moths will use their nest's fleshy upper layer to form an incubation pouch, usually in the crevices and corners of walls or ceilings. The mothers use their ovipositors to implant several dozen eggs into the sac. The eggs will later be fertilized by male common death moths. After several days, once the incubation sac is consumed, the mothers will relocate them to the center of the hive. Physical description. The death moth eggs start at a similar size to mundane moths, around 3 to 5 millimeters, but grow significantly during the incubation process. They will absorb nutrients from their sac and rapidly grow over the course of several days, eventually reaching a size of approximately 3 to 5 centimeters, and will be stacked in columns by the mothers. Larval death moths. Death moth larvae are voracious and quite dangerous despite their relative size. They remain in this state from the time they hatch until they have enough stored energy for metamorphosis. This process usually takes about 3 weeks. Physical description. Larval death moths range from 5 to 10 centimeters in length with a diameter of 4 centimeters, and their upper carapaces are covered in hollow quills measuring 7 centimeters. These quills secrete a paralytic toxin, making predation of the otherwise defenseless larva rather difficult. They possess sharp serrated mandibles used to easily consume flesh and plant matter. Due to a lack of wings, the larvae ambulate using a dozen segmented legs. Behavior. In order to store enough energy for metamorphosis, the larval death moths will continuously consume the upper layer of the central hive, only breaking for 10-minute microsleep cycles. When threatened, the larvae will curl themselves into a spherical shape, fully exposing their quills for protection. During metamorphosis, The larval death moths will burrow into organic walls of the central hive and will remain in there for approximately 20 days before emerging as fully grown death moths. Common death moth. The common death moth is the most populous caste of the species, accounting for roughly 80% of the total Entity 4 population. Physical description. All common death moths share several features, including 2 pairs of membranous wings covered in scales and microscopic fibers, 2 compound eyes, and 2 ocelli, a pair of feathered antennae, and 6 segmented legs ending in clawed tarsi. Males are smaller, with wingspans of 30 to 35 centimeters and bodies 40 to 50 millimeters long. They have highly developed sensory antennae that are used for long-range colony communication. During pupation, their mandibles become vestigial, replaced with long needle-like proboscis, adapted for piercing and draining liquids. Females are larger, with wingspans of 40 to 45 centimeters and bodies 60 to 70 millimeters long, bearing a thicker thorax and abdomen. Instead of a proboscis, they retain extended mandibles and reinforced pitchers, used for rending flesh. They also possess a specialized organ that produces a caustic fluid, used defensively and in the processing of organic matter for nests and incubation sacs. Behavior. Males are typically docile scavengers, feeding on any liquid that can sustain them, including almond water and other supplies. They lack effective predatory tools and generally consume only dead or dying prey. Though fairly harmless on their own, a swarm can desiccate an incapacitated human in 1 to 2 hours. The male death moths are commonly found at great distances away from the central hive, conducting reconnaissance and relaying new information from the outer reaches of their territory. The male's relatively passive nature makes them the most easily domesticated variety. Females, by contrast, are aggressive and become increasingly hostile closer to hive centers. They primarily hunt using swarm tactics. Groups of death moths coordinate to strip flesh from exposed areas, typically resulting in fatal blood loss. After successfully incapacitating a target, the swarm will reduce it to a gelatinous mass using caustic ejecta, which is then shaped into spheres and carried back to the hive. Both plant matter and animal remains are gathered this way, with skeletal remains often being found around hive sites. When stressed, females release pheromones that rally nearby males, other females, and praetorians to their aid. Praetorian death moth. The Praetorian death moth is by far the most formidable and aggressive variant of Entity 4. Though only consisting of approximately 15% of the total Entity 4 population, at least one is present within every colony. Due to their disposition and the danger they present, it is recommended to avoid Praetorian death moths whenever possible. Physical description. The Praetorian death moth is the second largest Entity 4 variation. They're nearly a meter tall and have bodies measuring between 15 and 20 centimeters in diameter, with a wingspan of approximately 60 centimeters. They are semi-simultaneous hermaphrodites, having functioning male genitalia, vestigial female genitalia, and other traits of the female common death moth. The most apparent physical deviation found in Praetorians is their 8 legs that measure 70 to 75 centimeters. These legs are segmented and possess internal organs that secrete a potent paralytic toxin that is used for predation and self-defense. The Praetorian's wings are semi-vestigial, used only for the propagation of concentrated pheromones, which it can spread up to 5 kilometers away. Behavior. Praetorian death moths are agile and will swiftly attack anything they perceive to be a threat. Using their appendages, they will generally strike at vulnerable areas to weaken or incapacitate their prey, and have also been observed employing corrosive ejecta to further immobilize or damage targets. Once immobilized, the Praetorian will use several appendages to dismember the prey and relocate the remains to the central hive. The highest populations are found congregating around Empress death moths and escorting them during their migration. After a permanent nest is established, one or more Praetorians will remain to protect the colony. Empress Deathmoths are the only variation capable of laying Praetorian Deathmoth eggs. Empress Deathmoth. The Empress Deathmoth is the most important caste in relation to the propagation of the species. Due to the inherent danger of interacting with an empress, information regarding their internal biology and behavior is limited. Physical description. Empresses measure approximately 75 centimeters in height and have a body length of 1.5 meters approximately, significantly larger than the other Entity 4 castes, with a total wingspan of nearly 3 meters. An empress is capable of spreading pheromones between 15 and 25 kilometers away. Despite the size of their wings, they are only capable of short bursts of flight due to their weight. Empresses have the longest antennae of the species, and in conjunction with their pheromones, they are capable of controlling entire colonies from a centralized location. The Empress Deathmoths have elongated bodies, the lower half consisting of a large internal incubation chamber, allowing them to lay hundreds of Deathmoth eggs at a time. Behavior. The Empress Deathmoths travel between levels, establishing new colonies along their migration path. They are always accompanied by a harem consisting of dozens of Praetorian Deathmoths, with whom they will engage in maternal polyandry. When threatened, the Empress Deathmoth can cause a frenzied state that causes erratic and highly aggressive behavior in all exposed Deathmoths. Empress Deathmoths typically do not interact or occupy the same level with another member of their caste. It is theorized that the presence of multiple matriarchs causes confusion among the colonies, and for this reason the empresses are instinctually territorial. Research into the mechanism by which new Empress Deathmoths are created is currently ongoing. Migratory colonies. When an Empress Deathmoth enters a level, its accompanying colony will immediately begin searching for a central nest location, typically rooms or corridors with limited access points and multiple light sources. The colony will begin to construct a nest around the Empress Deathmoth once a suitable location is discovered. The Empress itself will enter a gestation period lasting several weeks. Meanwhile, in preparation for the new larva, the colony will systematically assimilate biological matter found within the level. After gestation is complete, the Empress will lay hundreds of eggs, including several dozen Praetorians, before repeating the process. This will occur for several cycles before the Empress Deathmoth signals the colony to begin migration. The Empress colony will then vacate the level, leaving the new colony to fend for itself. It is extremely rare for migratory colonies to travel through the same level twice, leading to many hypotheses regarding generational memory, cross-colony communication, and the intelligence of the species as a whole. There are currently 13 known migratory colonies. Survival Guide. Deathmoths can pose varying levels of danger ranging from minor annoyances to lethality, or in extreme circumstances, the complete disruption of a level's ecosystem. When dealing with Entity 4, always remember the Swarm's protocol. S. Survival over engagement. Whenever possible, avoiding contact with Deathmoths is always the best course of action. Only engage when escape is unavoidable. Keep the interaction short and flee the area promptly after. W. Watch for hives. Hives are extremely dangerous and, inadvertently, wandering into one can prove lethal. Look for fleshy protrusions covering doorways and avoid clusters of female, common Deathmoths. A. Avoid bright lights. Bright lights can attract Deathmoths. If you know Deathmoths are nearby, extinguish or dim your lights, and avoid well-lit areas. R. Remain calm. Swarm attacks can be very disorienting. Keep your composure and follow a plan. If you're traveling in a group, discuss Deathmoth encounters in advance. M. Mark territory. Signage warning of Deathmoth activity can save lives. If none is present, makeshift warnings can be just as effective. S. Stay informed. Colonies can spread across entire levels. If you are part of a group, it is important to stay in communication on Deathmoth activity to avoid complications. Relay new Deathmoth sightings to the appropriate groups or outposts in the area. Footnotes. 1. Saturnia mortem. 2. For example, bones, hardwood, metal scraps, and various other materials. 3. They reproduce through hatching eggs externally. 4. A tube-like organ that externally deposits eggs. 5. A chitinous shell that protects the organism. 6. At one point, certain groups within the lost would hunt death moths and track migratory patterns in order to harvest larvae. Separating the toxins through a careful practice process, they would drain the larvae before removing and storing the quills. Their use in handcrafted blowguns made them an effective and often lethal weapon. Even in modern days, this practice is still utilized by some groups, in one way or another. 7. Commonly known as simple eyes. 8. A segmented claw-like foot found at the end of insectoid legs. 9. The localized domestication of captured male common death moths has been a practice in Backrooms culture for most of recorded history, with the earliest records deciphered by the IMBH depicting a pre-lost group that migrated with and possibly worshipped a death moth empress colony. The domestication of death moths has been reintroduced by several groups. Most notably, the Meg has a dedicated team that uses domesticated death moths to help locate no-clip points in newly discovered levels. Many wanderers also claim that the company provided by the domesticated death moths is a welcome reprieve while in isolation for long periods. 10. Notably possessing the same organs that grant the ability to eject a corrosive substance. 11. Similar in composition to the venom of a larval death moth, though at a significantly higher concentration. 12. Subsequent birthing cycles produce few, if any, praetorian death moths.